Shabbos Daf Chaf Beis continues a long discussion about the halachos of Chanukah. So first we'll start off with what the maximum height that the Chanukah candles could be at is. Tomorrow we'll take a sidestep and discuss the pit that Yosef was thrown into by his brothers, what was in there. Then back to Chanukah, how close to the doorway does it have to be? Which side of the doorway should it be on? And then we'll have a discussion about using the Chanukah lights for other things or for possible disrespectful activities. So the Gemara will want to know, you're allowed to count money to the light of the Chanukah candles. And we will compare this to two other cases of using a mitzvah for something that's not respectful, and that is covering the blood of shechita with your foot, using your foot to move the dirt, or using the decorations of the sukkah for your own needs. Then the Gemara will get into the question of, are you allowed to light a candle from another candle? Is related to the discussion before. The Gemara will quote three machloks in Rav and Shmuel, in which the halacha is like Rav, or in which the halacha is not like Rav, although it normally is in matters of Isser. And then the Gemara will try to figure out the answer to that. That'll take us into a discussion of what exactly fulfills the mitzvah of Chanukah. Is it lighting the candles or placing the lit candles in the right spot? So first the Gemara discusses what is the maximum height that Chanukah candles could still be. The issue is that if they're too high, people won't notice them. They're above the general range of where one's eyes rove. So Rav Kana says, is a drasha said by Rav Nassim Bar Yumi in the name of Rabbi Tanchum that it can't be higher than 20 amas. We see that halacha explicitly by sukkah. Sukkah, the schach can't be higher than 20 amas. And a mavoi cannot have a beam that is meant to enclose it higher than 20 amas because people won't see it that far up. So the same halacha, he says, applies to Chanukah candles. Now the same person, Rav Kana, says the drasha of Rabbi Nassim Bar Yumi in the name of Rabbi Tanchum, says an apparently disconnected thing. He says when the brothers, the Shvatim, threw Yosef into the pit, so it says that the bar was empty, there was no water in it. Bar reik ein by mayim. So yes, what do you mean? If it's empty, for sure it has no water. That's a redundant statement. So he said it was empty of water, but it did have snakes and scorpions in it. Now there is an apparent connection between the two, and that is asked by the Rishon, how could they throw him into something that has snakes and scorpions? The whole point of throwing him in there was not to kill him, but if there's snakes and scorpions in there, it's definitely going to kill him because they're definitely going to bite him. So one apparent explanation is that the pit was 20 amas deep, and therefore they couldn't see it, and that's why it follows on this statement that we have earlier. Now, the Gemara wants to know, where should it be relative to the door? The issue again is, if it's too far away from the door, people won't realize that it is pertaining to this door over here. It could be belonging to anybody, and so it has to be within a minimum space of the doorway. So Rabba says it's got to be within a tefach of the door. Now, which side of the door should it be? So Rabba says, when you're on your way into the house, it should be on your right. Rav Shmuel Midifti says, in the name of Shmuel, no, it should be on the left. And the Gemara says, halach is it should be on the left, because on your way into the house, the mezuzah is on your right, and in this way, you'll have a mezuzah on the left, you have a mezuzah on the right, and the Chanukah candles on the left, and you'll be surrounded by mitzvahs on all sides. Now the Gemara discusses the issue of treating the light of the Chanukah candles with the proper respect. So we had seen earlier that there was a three-way machlokes, two of which were about whether one is allowed to use the lights of the Chanukah candles to do something. Rav was of the opinion there that it is forbidden. Over here, you have a statement of Rav Asi, or Rav Yehuda, in the name of Rav Asi, who might be quoting Rav, might not be. It's not clear what the Gersa is. And he says that you're not allowed to count money to the light of the candle. So there's a machlokes Rishonim here, whether he's agreeing with what he said earlier, whether it's in agreement with what Rav said earlier, or this is adding that you might think money you are allowed to because it's a short, momentary thing, or because it is a minor use. Either way, Rav Yehuda, the name of Rav, possibly quoting Rav, says you're not allowed to count money. So the Gemara says, Shmuel says, well, why not? There is no inherent holiness, kedusha, to the light of the Chanukah candles. You can do what you want. So obviously, Shmuel holds that it is permitted to use the Chanukah candles for whatever needs one would like to. So the Gemara says that Rav Yosef defended the position of Rav Yehuda, and he said no. The problem over here is that you are behaving disrespectfully. It's disrespectful to the mitzvah to count money. Not that you're not allowed to use it, but it's disrespectful to the mitzvah. We have a similar halacha, he says, in the case of kisui adam. The halacha is that when one shechts a wild animal or a bird, one must cover the blood. So the halacha there is that you should not cover it with your foot. Even though you use sand to cover it, it'll be easier to just kick some sand over it with your foot, but you shouldn't. The same hand that you used to shecht, to slaughter the animal and to spill its blood, you should use to cover the blood with sand by means of your hand. The reason for that is that if you would use your foot to do the mitzvah, it would be disrespectful. So similarly over here, you should not count money by the light of the Hanukkah candles, which would be considered to be not proper respect for it. Now, the Gemara has discussed the halacha regarding bizayon, the proper treatment of the mitzvah of Hanukkah candles and that of the blood that needs to be covered after shechita. Now, the Gemara has a third case, which is similar to all of these, and that is the things which are hung in the sukkah for decorations. Those are fruits, for example, and other things. Are you allowed to use those during the sukkahs? So he asked this question of Rabbi Shua ben Levi. Are you allowed to use them? And he said, well, you could learn out of Hanukkah. Just by Hanukkah, you're not allowed to count money. So here, too, you're also not allowed to use the sukkah decorations until after Sukkot is over. So the Gemara says that Rav Yosef said, what are you talking about? He says, by the God of Avram, how could you say such a thing? You're going to learn the halacha of Sukkah out of the halacha in Chanukah. The halacha in Sukkah says explicitly in the Brisa. The halacha of Chanukah, that doesn't say anywhere. That's just an Amar who said that. And he quotes the Brisa that says that you're not allowed to use any of the decorations in the Sukkah until Sukkot is over. And it specifically lists if you use colored curtains, embroidered linens, nuts, peaches, almonds, pomegranates, clusters of grapes, grain, wine, flour, all these things. You hung them in the sukkah. You're not allowed to use them until Sukkot is over. The only way that you're allowed to, the Brisa says, is if you made a Tanai. That means that you stipulated when Yom Tov was beginning of Sukkot, through the entire twilight period, through the entire Banish Mashas, you said that there is no Kedusha to this. It does not get the Kedusha of being a Sukkah decoration, and I maintain the right to use it. That's the only case in which you're allowed to use it. However, otherwise you're not allowed to use it. So the Brisa says explicitly. So Gemara says, Rav Yosef says, you're not supposed to learn anything. You're not supposed to learn Sukkot halachas out of Chanukah halachas. You're supposed to learn both of them out of the one which is the father of them all, which is the mitzvah of covering the blood, where you see that you have to treat the mitzvah with proper respect. Now, the Gemara discusses the following thing. Throughout Shas, there are many machlokas between Rav and Shmuel. The halacha in all of them is as follows. If it is a monetary issue, the halacha is like Shmuel. If it is a halacha of Isser, of Isser v'heter, meaning it's of whether something is permitted or not in mitzvahs and halacha, so there the halacha is like Rav. That is true at all machloksin of Rav and Shmuel across Shas, except for 3 cases. There are 3 cases where it's a question of Isser, it's a question of whether something is mutter, whether something is permitted or forbidden, and the halacha is not like Rav, it's like Shmuel. And those 3 cases are as follows. Number 1, are you allowed to light one Hanukkah candle from another? Number 2, are you allowed to take tzitzis off an old tzitzis garment and put it onto a new one? And number 3, are you allowed to drag a bench through soft earth, which may or may not cause a furrow to be dug in the ground on Shabbos? Do you say that since he's not intending to dig the furrow, it's permitted? Or do you say that since it may happen, it is forbidden, even if you do not intend for it to happen? So the first of these, the Gemara will discuss them one at a time. The first of these is the issue of lighting from candle to candle. So Rav says that it is forbidden. So the Gemara says, what's the machlokes? What's Rav's reasoning? So the Gemara has a few offerings over here. The Gemara first says the reason is because it is a bizayin to the mitzvah. It's degrading to the mitzvah to light from one candle to another. And the Gemara's explanation of that is because we're assuming that you're using a match. A match is not a mitzvah. You're going to have your match. You're going to light from one candle. You will light the match from one candle, then use that match to light the second candle. So the match is not a mitzvah. If you would be lighting directly from candle to candle, that would not be using something like a match in between. That would not be degrading to the candle to light a match with it. So therefore that would be permitted. So the first explanation is that Rav says it's forbidden because you're using a match. But if you would be using a candle directly from another candle, that would be permitted. Then the Gemara says, no, that's not the reason. A second offering as to what the reason is. The reason is that it appears as if you're taking flame away from the first candle, even though you're not actually, but that's the appearance. And therefore, even if you're lighting directly from candle to candle, it's still forbidden because you don't want to take flame away from a mitzvah candle. Now, Shmuel holds it is mutter to light from candle to candle. So according to the first pshat, that Rav only said it's usser if you are lighting from candle to match to candle because the match doesn't have kedusha, so then Shmuel says that it's mutter, which means that Shmuel holds you're allowed to light a match from a candle, meaning you're allowed to use a mitzvah to light an unholy object. According to the second version of this machlekes, the second explanation, Shmuel is not arguing in the case of the match. Shmuel holds in the case of the match is also also. The only reason that Shmuel says it's mutter is because he doesn't hold of diminishing the flame. So now the Gemara asks on the first version. We're telling you that Shmuel says you're allowed to light a match from a candle, and the halacha is like Shmuel. So then it goes in contradiction to another brisa, talking about something completely different. Brisa is talking about when you put Kedushas Meiser Sheni, all fruits, onto a coin, and then you want to use that coin to check the weight of two other coins, because those coins, you want to use them for Meiser Sheni as well. So to check the weight of unholy, with no Kedusha coins, by using a Kadosh coin is forbidden. That's what the Brisa says, even though you intend, the reason why you want to check the weight is so you could use it for a mitzvah. So this is the same as if saying that you're not allowed to light a wood chip from a candle which has Kedusha. So this brisa would not fit with the way Shmuel and the halacha understand the case by the candle according to the first version, and therefore this proves the second version. The Gemara answers this is not a kasha. The reason why it's forbidden in the case of the coins is because what happens if the coins don't match, and those two coins that you want to use will end up not being right sizes. One of them will be worn out, and you won't be able to use it for Meiser Sheni. Then it'll turn out that what you did ended up not being for the purpose of a mitzvah, because you can't use them for a mitzvah. That's why it's forbidden. But really, if you know it's for sure going to be for a mitzvah, then it's mutter. The Gemara now asks another kasha. This one ends up being on both versions of the explanation of Rav and Shmuel's machlokes. And it's from a brisa that says as follows. The brisa asks, why is there a mitzvah to have a menorah in the Beis Hamikdash? What does the Kadosh Baruch Hu need light for? He doesn't need light. All of Klal Yisrael walked by his light through the 40 years that they wandered in the Midbar, because his column of fire shone light for all mankind. So what is the need for the menorah? So the Gemara says that it's testimony. That's why it says Michutz L'Parichos Ha'edus. The menorah was placed outside the curtain of testimony. What's the testimony? To show all the world that the Shechina rests with Klal Yisrael, that HaKadosh Baruch Hu has a special love for Klal Yisrael. How do you see that? Because the westmost candle of the menorah burned all day, until the time for relighting was, even though it had the same amount of oil as all the other ones, it burned all day. What happened was that the Kohen took out the candle while it was still burning, he refilled it and put in a new wick, and then he lit the new wick with the old burning wick, and then he lit all the other candles from that westmost wick. So the Gemara asks, Rav Sheshes is the one who's asking, how could he light from that to everyone else? The cups, the wicks were set in the cups, and the cups were fixed in the menorah. Couldn't be removed. It must be that he used a match. If he used a match to light from a mitzvah candle, obviously it's not degrading for the mitzvah to do that. So both explanations are wrong. It's not degrading, and it's not wrong to light from one candle to another because you're weakening the first one. Neither of these are right. So Gemara says no. So I'll defend at least the first approach, that the menorah had long wicks, and therefore he didn't have to use a match. So that really to use a match is forbidden, and that could be the machlokes Rav and Shmuel. And we hold like Shmuel that it's not forbidden. But the second approach is not defended here. So the Gemara says you're right. The second approach is a little difficult to understand according to this brisa. So now the Gemara asks, what is halacha l'maisa? Are you allowed to light from candle to candle or not? Now the Rishonim discussed that we seem to say earlier that we paskin like Shmuel, but the Gemara here is apparently not convinced that we paskin like Shmuel. So the Gemara says, what's the halacha? The Gemara says it really depends on a different argument, a different dispute, a different machlokes about what action actually accomplishes the mitzvah of lighting Hanukkah candles. Is it the lighting? Or is the lighting only a prerequisite to the mitzvah, which is placing the menorah in the right spot after you have lit it? This is called Hanacha Oisa Mitzvah or Hadlaka Oisa Mitzvah. What accomplishes the mitzvah, the lighting or the placing? So the Gemara says, if you tell me that the lighting accomplishes the mitzvah, so then lighting is an act of mitzvah, I would let you light from candle to candle because it's a mitzvah. But if you tell me that putting it down does the mitzvah, I would not let you light from candle to candle because the lighting itself is not a mitzvah, it's just a prerequisite to accomplish the mitzvah later when you place a menorah in the right spot. Now the Gemara discusses this machlokes, what accomplishes the mitzvah, the lighting or the placing. So the Gemara wants to bring a proof. So first the Gemara wants to prove that the mitzvah is accomplished when you place it. So the Gemara says we have a brisa which says that if you light the menorah and you stay holding it in the doorway the entire time that it burns, you did not do the mitzvah. So obviously that shows that you only do the mitzvah when you place it down. Gemara says maybe not. Maybe you really do the mitzvah when you light it. But this guy who's holding it made it not a mitzvah because people who walked by didn't realize it was Hanukkah menorah. They just thought the guy needs light. The Gemara brings another proof to the opposite side. And this will be our final proof for this daf. We have halacha that says if somebody lit the candles inside in the wrong spot and then he moved it and he put it down in the right spot, he doesn't fulfill the mitzvah. So it says here you clearly see that lighting it does the mitzvah, and that's why he didn't fulfill the mitzvah, because he lit it in the wrong spot. But if it's fulfilled when he put it down, so he put it down. He put it down in the right spot. What's the problem? The Gemara rejects this also. The Gemara says no, because if people see him carrying it and putting it down, then they're going to think that he really needs it for his own uses. He needs light to look for something, and that's why he brought it outside and he placed it there, because they saw him put it down. So we're still unresolved, at least for now, whether hadlaka accomplishes the mitzvah lighting, or whether placing it down accomplishes the mitzvah and lighting does not.